What if I told you that the biggest threat to your money in 2026 isn't a market crash, a recession, or even bad investments? It's doing nothing. Right now, millions of people believe cash is safety. They believe sitting on the sidelines protects them. But what if that belief is quietly destroying their future? Inflation doesn't knock on your door. It doesn't make headlines every day. It simply erodes your purchasing power while you sleep. And if you're still holding large amounts of idle cash, this message could change how you protect your wealth forever. Stay with me until the end, and because the strategy you'll hear today isn't about gambling. It's about survival, control, and long-term dominance. The core message, let's be clear. Cash feels safe, but safety is an illusion. When inflation rises, cash becomes a melting ice cube. Every year you hold it, it buys you less. The danger isn't volatility. The danger is certainty. And the certainty is this: cash guarantees loss over time. In 2026, smart investors don't ask, how do I avoid risk? They ask, how do I make my money work? Money must be productive. Money must generate income. Money must fight inflation on your behalf. That doesn't mean reckless speculation. It means intentional allocation into assets that grow, pay, and adapt. The shift in mindset. The wealthy don't hoard cash. They deploy it. They understand that markets move in cycles, but ownership beats timing. While others wait for perfect conditions, disciplined investors collect dividends, cash flow, and long-term appreciation. Fear tells you to wait. Logic tells you to prepare. And preparation means positioning your portfolio where it can survive inflation, withstand volatility, and still grow. The real risk, the biggest lie ever sold to average investors is this: cash equals security. No, cash equals stagnation. The real risk isn't investing, it's letting inflation tax your future silently. Every year you delay, you hand over your buying power to forces you can't control. But here's the good news. You don't need to predict the market. You don't need to chase hype. You need a system, one built on income, resilience, and discipline. Closing, strong emotional finish 2026 will reward those who act, not those who wait. The question isn't whether markets will change. They always do. The question is whether you will change with them. Stop protecting money that's shrinking. Start building a portfolio that works while you sleep. Because in the future, the winners won't be the ones who held cash. They'll be the ones who understood that money must move or it dies. Your choice starts now. Cash is no longer safe, and the most dangerous part is that it doesn't feel dangerous at all. Inflation doesn't arrive like a storm or a crash. It works quietly, patiently, and relentlessly, reducing the real value of your money day after day. When your cash sits idle, it isn't resting, it's being consumed. What looks stable on a bank statement is often shrinking in real-world terms, even if the number never changes. The price of food rises, housing costs climb, energy becomes more expensive, and suddenly the same amount of cash buys you less freedom, fewer options, and a smaller future than it did just a few years ago. People are taught from a young age that cash equals security. Save more, spend less, keep money aside, just in case. That advice made sense in a different era, when inflation was low and savings could keep pace with rising costs. But times have changed. Today, holding large amounts of cash is like standing still on a downward moving escalator. You may not feel the movement, but you are slowly being carried backward. Inflation acts as a hidden tax, one that punishes inactivity and rewards those who understand how to protect their purchasing power. The most unsettling truth is that this erosion happens even in good economic conditions. You don't need a crisis, a recession, or a market collapse for cash to lose value. All it takes is time. Year after year, inflation compounds, and the damage becomes visible only when it's already significant. Retirement plans fall short. Long-term goals drift further away. What once felt like a comfortable cushion turns into a weak foundation. This is why the idea of cash as a safe haven has become outdated. Safety is not about avoiding movement, it's about maintaining strength. If your money isn't growing at least as fast as the cost of living, it is effectively moving backward. The illusion of stability can be more harmful than volatility because volatility is obvious and forces you to pay attention. Inflation is subtle, and that subtlety is exactly what makes it so destructive. Idle cash also creates a false sense of control. Seeing money untouched can feel reassuring, but control is meaningless if value is slipping through your fingers. Real financial control comes from understanding how money behaves over time and positioning it so it can defend itself. Cash cannot do that on its own. It has no engine, no momentum, no built-in protection against rising prices. In an environment where inflation is persistent, the rules change. Money must have a purpose. It must be positioned where it can either grow, generate income, or adjust with economic realities. Doing nothing becomes a decision, and often the worst one. The longer cash remains idle, the more work it will have to do later just to catch up. Lost purchasing power is difficult to recover, and time is not forgiving. Recognizing that cash is no longer safe is not about fear, and it's not about panic. It's about clarity. It's about understanding that the world has shifted and strategies that once worked are no longer enough. Inflation doesn't need your permission, and it doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It moves forward regardless, quietly reshaping what your money is worth in the real world, day by day, year by year. 2026 demands action, not comfort, because comfort is often the enemy of progress. Waiting on the sidelines may feel responsible, but markets have never rewarded hesitation for long. Opportunity rarely announces itself clearly, and by the time uncertainty disappears, the biggest gains have already been claimed. The future belongs to those who prepare, position, and move with intention, not those who sit still hoping for perfect clarity. Fear convinces people that standing aside is safer than participating, but fear doesn't eliminate risk. It only delays it. Every year spent waiting is a year of missed compounding, missed income, and missed momentum. Markets don't pause for individual doubts. Capital flows continuously, and those who are not part of that flow slowly fall behind, even if they believe they are being cautious. Comfort creates complacency. When money is parked and untouched, it gives the illusion of stability, but stability without progress is stagnation. In 2026, conditions are shaped by rapid change, global shifts, and evolving economic forces. In such an environment, adaptability matters more than certainty. Those who cling to old habits and familiar strategies risk being left behind, not because they made mistakes, but because they failed to act. Markets reward strategy, not impulse. Action does not mean reckless behavior or chasing every trend. It means having a clear plan, understanding where value is created, and allocating capital accordingly. Strategic action is disciplined, patient, and purposeful. It accepts short-term fluctuations in exchange for long-term advantage. Waiting, on the other hand, often comes from the hope that someone else will take the risk first, providing proof that it's safe to move. By then, the opportunity is diluted. History consistently shows that the biggest rewards go to those who invest during uncertainty, not after it disappears. When sentiment is mixed and headlines are confusing, prices often reflect fear rather than fundamentals. This is when strategic thinkers step in, guided by logic instead of emotion. Comfort seekers wait for reassurance, but reassurance usually arrives after the market has already moved. Another cost of waiting is psychological. The longer someone stays on the sidelines, the harder it becomes to enter. Every upward move increases regret, and every dip reinforces fear. This cycle can trap people in inactivity for years. Action breaks that cycle. Even small, deliberate steps restore confidence and reconnect money with purpose. In 2026, the question is no longer whether change will happen, but whether you will participate in it. Markets favor those who accept uncertainty as the price of progress. They punish those who demand comfort before commitment. Strategy provides direction when emotions try to take control. It replaces guessing with planning and fear with structure. Choosing action is choosing engagement with the future. It means understanding that growth has never come from standing still. Markets are designed to reward those who contribute capital, patience, and discipline over time. Waiting may feel safe today, but strategy is what builds resilience and opportunity in the years that follow. Real protection comes from productive assets, not from money sitting still. Savings accounts may preserve a number on a screen, but they rarely preserve purchasing power. When inflation rises faster than the return on cash, the gap becomes a quiet loss that grows wider over time. True financial protection is not about hiding money. It is about placing it where it can defend itself against economic pressure. Productive assets have one defining characteristic: they work. They generate income, grow in value, or both. Instead of relying on hope or external support, they create their own return through underlying activity. This income acts as a buffer, allowing your portfolio to adapt as prices rise. When costs increase, income-generating assets have the potential to adjust, while idle cash does not. Inflation-resistant assets matter because they are connected to real economic value. They are tied to businesses, infrastructure, services, or resources that people continue to need regardless of market cycles. As prices rise, revenues often rise with them, and that growth can flow back to investors in the form of income or appreciation. This is how wealth protects itself over time, not by avoiding the economy, but by participating in it. Savings accounts, by contrast, are passive by design. They offer comfort but little defense. The interest earned is often insufficient to offset rising living costs, especially over long periods. What feels safe in the short term becomes fragile in the long term. The longer money remains there, the more it depends on external conditions rather than internal strength. Productive assets also shift the investor's mindset. Instead of focusing on daily market noise, attention moves to cash flow, sustainability, and long-term value. Income creates patience. When assets generate regular returns, short-term volatility becomes easier to tolerate because the portfolio is producing results even during uncertain periods. This stability is rooted in function, not in illusion. Another advantage of productive assets is adaptability. As economic conditions evolve, income streams can be reinvested, reallocated, or used to seize new opportunities. Cash that earns nothing cannot do this on its own. It waits. Productive assets respond. Over time, this responsiveness compounds, creating a widening gap between those who rely on savings alone and those who prioritize assets that work. Protection in the modern financial world is not about avoiding exposure. It is about choosing the right exposure. Income-generating and inflation-resistant assets offer a form of defense that savings accounts simply cannot match. They acknowledge reality rather than deny it. In an environment where money constantly loses value if left untouched, productivity becomes the shield that preserves not just wealth, but financial independence itself. Risk isn't investing. Risk is doing nothing. This idea challenges one of the most deeply rooted beliefs about money. Many people associate investing with danger and cash with safety, but in real terms, the opposite is often true. When money sits idle, it is exposed to a slow, predictable loss that requires no market crash to occur. Inflation guarantees that untouched cash will buy less in the future than it does today, and that certainty is the real risk most people overlook. Doing nothing feels responsible because it avoids immediate discomfort. There are no price swings to watch, no decisions to question, no moments of doubt, but comfort should not be confused with security. While inactivity may spare you short-term stress, it quietly commits you to long-term erosion. Every year you delay action, the value of your cash declines, and that loss compounds over time. Unlike market volatility, which can reverse, lost purchasing power rarely does. Investing, when done with intention and discipline, is not reckless behavior. It is a response to reality. Markets fluctuate, but productive assets exist because they serve real needs and create real value. Over time, this value tends to grow, even if the path is uneven. The fear of short-term movement often blinds people to the far greater danger of permanent decline caused by inaction. Holding cash is often justified as waiting for the right moment, but the perfect moment rarely arrives. Conditions are always uncertain, headlines are always alarming, and hesitation becomes a habit. Meanwhile, inflation continues its work without pause. In real terms, this makes cash a guaranteed losing position. The loss may not show up immediately, but it is embedded in the decision itself. There is also a psychological cost to doing nothing. Inactivity reinforces fear, making future decisions harder rather than easier. Each passing year increases the gap between where someone is and where they need to be. Catching up then requires taking greater risks later, when time is no longer an ally. Strategic investing spreads risk over time. Doing nothing concentrates it into the future. Understanding that risk lies in inaction reframes the entire conversation about money. The goal is not to eliminate uncertainty, but to manage it intelligently. By placing money into assets that have the potential to grow and generate income, you exchange a silent guaranteed loss for a dynamic process that at least offers the chance of progress. True financial danger is not movement, volatility, or temporary setbacks. It is standing still while the world moves forward. In real terms, holding cash locks in a loss before any decision is even made. Smart allocation beats market timing because success is built on structure, not prediction. Trying to enter and exit markets at the perfect moment assumes a level of certainty that rarely exists. Even professionals with vast resources struggle to time markets consistently. What actually works over the long term is having a disciplined plan that stays in motion regardless of short-term noise. Allocation focuses on where money lives and how it behaves over time, not on guessing what happens next. Discipline is the foundation. It keeps decisions grounded when emotions attempt to take control. Without discipline, investors chase headlines, react to fear, and abandon strategies at the worst possible moments. With discipline, temporary downturns become part of the process rather than a reason to quit. Staying invested according to a clear allocation allows compounding to do its work, even when markets feel uncomfortable. Diversification strengthens that discipline. By spreading capital across different assets and income sources, no single outcome determines success or failure. This reduces dependence on any one market sector or event. Diversification doesn't eliminate risk, but it reshapes it, turning unpredictable shocks into manageable fluctuations. Instead of trying to guess which asset will perform best next, allocation ensures that your portfolio is positioned to benefit from multiple paths forward. Cash flow is what ties everything together. Assets that generate income provide stability in an unstable world. They allow portfolios to grow even when prices fluctuate, and they create flexibility. Regular income can be reinvested, used to rebalance, or held for future opportunities without forcing sales at unfavorable times. This makes timing far less important because progress continues regardless of market cycles. Market timing demands perfection. Allocation demands consistency. One relies on luck, the other relies on process. Over time, process wins. Those who focus on allocation accept that they won't capture every peak or avoid every dip, but they understand that steady participation matters more than perfect decisions. Smart allocation also reduces stress. When a portfolio is built to endure different conditions, there is less temptation to react emotionally. Decisions are guided by long-term goals rather than daily price movements. This emotional stability is often the difference between those who stay invested and those who abandon plans just before results appear. In the end, the real winners are not those who predict the future correctly, but those who prepare for it intelligently. Discipline keeps the plan intact. Diversification spreads opportunity and risk. Cash flow sustains momentum. Together, they form an approach that outperforms guessing, waiting, and reacting, even when markets refuse to cooperate. The message is simple but urgent. The financial world has changed, and old habits no longer provide the protection they once did. Cash that sits idle loses strength every day, comfort leads to hesitation, and hesitation quietly steals the future. Progress now belongs to those who understand that money must be placed with intention, guided by discipline rather than emotion. Productive assets, strategic allocation, and steady cash flow are no longer optional ideas. They are the foundation of resilience in an inflation-driven world. Those who act with clarity and consistency give their money a purpose and a direction. Those who wait surrender control to forces they cannot see but will inevitably feel.